Newegg TV's coverage of Computex is powered by new Intel Core processors.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Newegg TV. We have traveled from California all the way to Taipei, Taiwan, because this is Computex week. So we're here. It's actually the day before Computex starts because we've been invited for the Computex OC main event. Corsair and Intel have brought a bunch of overclockers here together to see what kind of overclocking they can do with Corsair components, as well as, of course, Intel's new 4th generation core processors. So we're going to check out some super awesome liquid nitrogen overclocking, and we also have a ton of Corsair products that we're going to be sharing with you as well. I'm here talking with John. John is the VP and co-founder of Corsair. How are you doing today, John?
I'm doing awesome.
I'm doing great too. It's hot here in Taipei, but we're muddling through it. Now, what do we have going on here behind us? We have a bunch of overclockers. What kind of Corsair hardware are they using?
Well, they're using Corsair power supplies, Corsair memory, Corsair SSDs, Corsair flash drives, lots of Corsair stuff to allow this to happen.
So pretty much everything except maybe the motherboard and the CPU, which is of course one of Intel's new 4th gen core processors. So what sort of work have you guys been doing leading up to this launch to sort of get all your hardware ready?
Well, we're real excited about this Haswell platform. So we've been working with Intel and with the motherboard guys for months really as the platform's coming out. We've tooled special memory for it that's really tuned to work well with Haswell. We've verified that our PSUs are compatible with the power down states that Haswell has. Okay. Our CPU coolers mount on Haswell boards. And finally, we have some new cases as well that we're launching with Haswell.
Excellent. I also saw you guys have a new Vengeance series coming out as well.
Yeah, we have the Vengeance Pro, which is an update of our very popular Vengeance memory. It's 8-layer board. It's really tweaked to run with Haswell.
Nice.
It's awesome stuff.
Excellent. I really like the new design. We'll give you guys a closer look at that as well. When it comes to the power supplies, this is something that I've heard a lot leading up to the Haswell launch. The power states that are involved. Has that been a difficulty at all when it comes to actually maintaining compatibility?
Not really, no. It's what Haswell has. It has some power down states to allow really low power standby. Mm-hmm. Most modern power supplies will work with that. Some of the older designs won't. So since most of ours are very updated, there's been no problem with it. All of our enthusiast power supplies work with Haswell, no problem.
All right, guys, so if in doubt, check out a Corsair power supply. That's definitely going to be a great way to go. As well as the new cases, we're going to be taking a look around here and showing you guys lots of the new Corsair hardware that we have, as well as all the other Intel 4th generation core processors, as well as a bunch of overclocking. You might notice that we have some huge tanks right here. This is liquid nitrogen.
That's how we stay cool in Taiwan.
Of course. This is the best. I'm going to just hang out right next to these. It's a great way to keep cool. But there's going to be some overclocking, of course, going on with the liquid nitrogen. And I think we should jump into it, take a closer look. All right, guys. I have now delved into the actual overclocking area here, and John has agreed to give us some of his time. I know you guys are very busy going for the highest overclocks. We're about an hour and a half into it right now. So, John, first off, thanks for talking to us. What is your team name that you're running with here?
We're going with Team Lightning.
Team Lightning, all right. And just a few questions. I know you guys sort of you're able to take your pick of the main boards that you're using here. Processor-wise, I'm guessing it's a 4770K?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, and which motherboard did you choose?
We're using the MSI C87 M-Power Max.
All right, M-Power Max, excellent board. I did a quick overview of that. If you guys want to see more details, that's on our Newegg YouTube channel. Or if it's not yet, it will be very soon. Now we have a leaderboard that's up here behind us, and there's a bunch of different actual validation tests that you guys are running. So first off, are you guys up on that board yet?
Not yet.
All right, but soon, very soon. Now, when it comes to getting your overclock up and running, like what sort of numbers have you guys been hitting so far, as far as frequency?
What it goes for a CPU is like around 6.25, 6.3.
6.25, 6.3. And are you going for CPU first and then memory, or kind of going for a blend of both at the same time?
We've been testing the two samples of the CPUs we had.
Okay.
So just to try to find the best one first.
See which one.
So now we're going to combine it with some memory speed as well for the SuperPi 32M.
All right, excellent. Just a question. You guys are actually running Windows XP over here. Is there any reason for that?
Yeah, it is. It's for some older benchmarks, like for example SuperPi 32M. Windows XP is actually faster because it's like lighter code, you know, it's like lower memory usage,
a little bit
stuff
smaller
like that.
footprint and compatible with some older tests you guys are running. When it comes to that leaderboard up there, are there any specific tests you guys are shooting for? I know SuperPi 32M is kind of the top one there.
Yeah, so we have like modified GTX Titan card over here. So we're gonna do some 3D Mark 11, 3D Mark Firestrike, and maybe some 3D Mark 01 later as well.
Oh, so you're actually running a Titan as well?
Yeah.
Nice. I haven't seen one of those. Is that is that something that MSI is actually producing, or is that something you guys kind of assembled yourself?
Unfortunately, NVIDIA only does the reference design. They don't allow partners to do their own. So
I should have known that.
You can't even put a sticker on it, so it's pretty much NVIDIA design.
Special custom Titan that John's running with right here. All right, well, I'm going to let you get back to your work. Thank you very much for talking to us today, and good luck in the competition. Hey, guys, we're continuing our coverage here, and I'm talking with Mike. Mike, what is your title? If you could list that for us real quickly.
I'm the lead platform engineer at Intel.
All right, lead platform engineer for Intel. Now, you do overclocking. Is that, broadly speaking, is that accurate?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, so now we have Intel 4th generation core processors, previously known as Haswell. This is a huge launch for you guys. And when it comes to the different types of processors that are available, the ones I'm always most interested in are the K SKUs, the unlocked processors. And we're all very happy, of course, that Intel's continuing to provide those for the enthusiast community. So let's start out talking about sort of broadly, when it comes to a launch like this, you guys are sending out processors all over the place, whether you're talking about system integrators, whether you're talking about home users, whether you're talking about somebody who's going to install it in a work system, or whether you're talking about somebody like these guys behind us who are going to pop it in a test bed, pour on some liquid nitrogen, and crank it to its highest frequency. So how do you go about planning for such a broad range of applications with a processor?
The thing that I care about as a high-end desktop engineer, lead platform engineer, and caring about overclocking is exposing as many knobs in any architecture that we put out there that a expert overclocker like this is going to be able to exploit and be able to do performance tuning. For every processor that we put out there, there's always, you'll find some headroom, as they've very aptly demonstrated, and that's what it's all about. So if there's anything I can do in my day-to-day job, it's trying to make sure that we're figuring out how to take this very complex piece of integration in a processor and find those points of opportunity to, again, let these guys do what they do.
So sort of providing those who want the access to it, the flexibility to go in, to tweak and tune, to overclock, of course, and sort of see what sort of performance they can get out of the processor. Now, is this, generally speaking, kind of the first time that you've really unleashed the Haswell architecture onto folks, apart from the internal testing you guys have done at Intel?
Yeah, I think this is kind of exciting. This is launch day, or we just launched the Haswell architecture, and right away we're throwing it into competition.
Yeah.
The one thing I know though is that what we see today, people are going to continue to build. This community of overclockers, they're going to continue to build and come up with different ideas about how they can get better frequency. So we always see a maturing beyond this point, right? For what you observe today, you're going to see things continue to hopefully transpire that are great results.
Now, what about when it comes to, say, your motherboard manufacturers, the partners that you guys work with to develop the boards that the processors are used in? Do you ever have like any surprises when it comes to that? When you see a motherboard design, you're like, oh, well, we didn't really expect that type of design to come forth with this new launch.
Yeah, I guess I'd say we always see that kind of stuff, and we almost expect it now, because these guys are very good at what they do. The ODMs, the partners that we work with, we'll go out and we'll share the basic idea of here's the architectures, here's the knobs, the independent capabilities for, say, core or memory or graphics or B-clock or whatnot. And then they're going to study that, and they're going to test, and they're going to test, and they're going to test. It's what they do best. And so naturally, by the time they come to product space, we're like, oh, didn't really think of doing it that way,
Yeah.
but that's pretty awesome because you just got an awesome result.
So if one of our fans at home has just picked up a 4670K or 4770K, and let's say they have, say, a mid-range air cooler that they've purchased, an aftermarket air cooler, what sort of advice would you give when it comes to, say, I'll say voltage and frequency? What sort of marks do you think people should be aiming for?
Wow. Just from my own, I guess, experience, having done some of this, I think the experience is pretty close to what, if they ever did Ivy Bridge, our third generation for the 3770K, expect a pretty similar result.
Okay.
Right? If you're running in the 4.5, 4.6 range, that's pretty good. And a lot of the times, it doesn't take very much of a voltage bump to get there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So typically, I always recommend go for the multiplier bump first.
Right.
Get as far as you can go before you jump into voltage. Again, this is something that I've pointed out with Ivy Bridge, and I will continue to point out as we're talking about Haswell. Don't go for Sandy Bridge voltages, because Sandy Bridge was what we talked to Darren before we came out to Computex. He described it as flexible, which is very nice. I've heard like 1.275, 1.3 maybe max is probably about the most voltage that you would want to.
Yeah, personally, I try to stay away from the 1.3 just because you see the heat start to come up a little bit.
Okay. Now let's say we're jumping up from an air cooler to, say, an all-in-one liquid cooling system. Say you got a 240 millimeter radiator. You're going to be able to get a little bit more headroom with that?
I guess it all depends on the quality. I've seen air coolers that are a lot better than liquid coolers.
That's definitely true.
And the other way around. So, it depends on what kind of liquid cooler you're going for. Sometimes it's an acoustic play, right?
Yeah.
And those ones aren't going to be so great. Move as much air as you can.
Okay.
Move as much liquid as you can if it's a liquid cooler. And, it's always about trying to achieve your own personal stability goals, right? So what is it you want to do? You're going to play a game, or you're going to just compete on benchmarks? And then, as you described as well, go to that frequency that you think you can get to, and then only after you get there, if it's not good enough, start adding voltage.
Okay.
One of the things we talk about doing is trying to do voltage offsets. Some people just go for broke and they fix the voltage. Your enemy is heat, right?
Yeah, I'm not as big a fan of the fixed voltage.
Yeah.
I feel like there's so much power savings built in, efficiency with the way the processors can throttle up and down these days.
Right.
You go for a fixed voltage, and you're really just sort of negating all of that. So sometimes I'll do it if I'm going for like a quick overclock, just briefly to see what I can do, but I'll never go for that long term. And then, of course, what we have going on behind us, we've got the custom liquid cooling loops, of course, and those are going to be able to perform extremely well. And then behind us we have the liquid nitrogen cooling, the exotic cooling, which is sort of it's a fringe of the amount of users who actually will use the unlock processors. So for this, do we have a frame of reference? Do you guys at Intel have a frame of reference yet, or are we kind of waiting to see what goes on behind us for that?
We're kind of waiting to see what goes on behind us. I think, like I said before, we get surprises all the time, right? So what someone does with a board and the way that they optimize their voltage regulators, or the way that they optimize their code behind the memory training or whatnot. We hope to see some good news tonight on several fronts.
And we'll be providing additional coverage of that, so we'll be showing you guys a bit of the frequencies and the overclocks that our overclocking teams behind us are able to hit. But I think that about does it. Mike, thank you very much for talking to us today. All right, guys, so as promised, we've now stepped upstairs where it's a little bit quieter. Also a little bit cooler, which is nice. But I'm here talking with George. He is the PM for cases and cooling for Corsair. How's it going, George?
It's going well. It's going well.
All right. Well, what we're taking a look at here are some new. Would you call these prototypes? Are these going to be?
These are pretty close to production. So
Okay.
these are near final tooling, or this is actually a final tooled sample. So
All right.
these are pretty much ready to go.
So new cases from Corsair. We're going to start with this one here because this one is just a beast, as you guys can probably see. What is this called, and what was the design philosophy when you guys were assembling it or engineering it, I should say?
This is the Carbide Series Air 540. That's
Okay.
what we call it. And the idea was to create the best air cooling chassis in the world. And the basic premise was, okay, functionally what you want to do is get directed airflow to the hottest components from the coldest location, which is outside the chassis.
Typically, like your GPU, your CPU.
GPU, CPU, even mechanical hard drives occasionally can be pretty warm.
Okay.
So we said, okay, let's focus on that. So what we did is we said anything that doesn't need direct cooling, like an optical drive or a power supply which can cool itself, or SSDs which typically are more comfortable at higher temps, we'll put those behind the motherboard tray.
Okay.
And it's kind of like if you took a test bench with these guys, put the motherboard and graphics card and stuff on top, and flipped it on its side.
All right.
And the idea behind it gave rise to this, which is kind of what we call a double wide mid tower as a joke. It's basically you get your 8 slots, you have your two 140 millimeter fans that come with the chassis in front and a 140 in the rear, and then you have a ton of room for expansion inside. So here we actually get the cold air right to your hot components and then right back out of the case. So there's no hard drive cage, there's no optical drive cage, there's no power supply down here. It's just all airflow and in and out, and it works really well. And it's not like a brute force method where you just shove tons of fans in there and turn them up all the way. This is really a more elegant solution, and it's gotten the best air cooling numbers we've ever tested in the lab.
How long have you guys been working with the design and testing for this model?
A little over a year,
Okay.
from like conceptualization to prototypes, and prototype after that one because the first one broke and stuff all kinds of stuff like that happens. So you get to this point where you finally get the design done, and then you work through the industrial design for the outside. What's it going to look like? How's it going to work? How do the buttons work? So a little over a year by the time it's all said and done.
I've seen certain cases before, especially when it comes to air cooling, where you have like a 90-degree rotation with the motherboard. Is that something that was considered at all with this case, or when it comes to testing with that, is that an effective means?
We have to, yeah. So that is actually an effective means of cooling. We've tested a couple chassis from competitors that have that design, and what we found that is if you take that chassis and you flip it in a traditional orientation where the cables come out of the back of the case, you get the exact same performance numbers.
Okay.
So it's actually not the rotation that helps, but if you look closely at those designs, what you'll notice is the intake fans are right next to the GPU and right next to the CPU, just like this design.
So here you
so
go.
This is the same principle, which is get your cold air to your hot components and then get rid of it as quickly as you can.
All right, so instead of passing through hard drive cages or whatnot, you got direct airflow straight over. And as you guys can probably see, we have 4 GPUs currently installed here, all dual slot. Looks like some Asus cards right there. So full complement of GPUs available here. 4-way SLI support, I imagine 4-way Crossfire X as well.
Yeah.
We also have up here right now we're running an H100. Or
H100, yeah, this is an H100i. So actually this case has some nice cooling options. Like I mentioned, it comes with two 140s in the front and a 140 in the rear. It also has compatibility with a 280, a 240, or a 360 millimeter radiator in front, so you can put 3 120s there if you want. On top, you can fit a 240 or a 280 as well, and this one's in push-pull, so you can see the H100i is in push-pull here. That gives you a lot of cooling options, so you can actually kind of go nuts and say, hey, that comes out, does really well cooling stock, but I just kind of want to take it to a ridiculous level. So you can put dual rads in there at the same time. And then also in this chamber are the 2 mechanical hard drive docks. These are hot swap docks in the bottom. So if you have a hard drive that's a mechanical drive and you're worried about the temps of it and you don't want to put it in the passive chamber, then you just put it down here in the hot swap dock.
All right, so those squeeze them
Yeah,
and they pull out.
they just squeeze and pull in and out. Like this one,
There
the
we
tray
go.
just comes in. You either it's tool free for a 3.5, or if you do a 2.5, you just screw it in the bottom, and then you just slide it back into, and it locks in place.
All right. Now, we do want to take a look at the other side, of course, as well. So back here is where you're going to have some of your other components, which do generate heat, but maybe not quite so much, so not as much active cooling required over here.
Yeah. So we meshed out the back so that it had, basically a ton of air in there as well. But your optical drives need basically no cooling, so they can sit in here. Your SSDs, most SSDs don't require active cooling. If you do have an SSD that runs hot and you're concerned about it, you can put it in the other chamber.
Nice.
But in here we have these tool-free SSD cages. We have a power supply which cools itself. So you don't have to worry about that. It has its own fan, and there's mesh on the side panel for that to take input and output. And then just this huge honking cable routing area where you can just shove the cables and not even worry about zip ties or whatever.
Yeah, if you want to talk about space for cable management, that's about the most I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's a pretty nice chassis. So we're stoked about it. It's got standard USB 3.0 front panel stuff, and then it's a pretty easy chassis to build. The windowed side panel, you don't see it here because we don't have it installed for this video, but it's just a big window that goes over this whole side, so you can see all your components pretty easily.
Very nice. And these mesh grills right here also pop off quite easily. There's a removable magnetic dust filter right there on the front as well, so this being designed for air cooling, very easy to clean out as well. And again, this being designed for air cooling, I'm looking forward to the first person who does a crazy water-cooled system in here, because as George already said, tons of radiator options in here as well. So Looks like you'd be pretty much set either way.
Yep, it's a pretty nice chassis for that.
All right, so next up, let's sort of shuffle over this way a little bit, and we have this new beauty, which this is going to be maybe slightly more budget design case.
Yeah, so we've already, we've done a couple of silent cases before. This is the 330R, the Carbide Series 330R. The Obsidian 550 is our kind of flagship silent case, which is like a $150 silent case. It's got 8 slots. You can put up to 10 fans in it if you decide you want to make a high airflow case instead of a silent case. So it's got that flexibility. What our goal with this one was to make a budget-conscious, like silent case that did anything that most budget or average users, mainstream users, would be concerned with.
Okay.
So for the 330R, for example, we still have this nice front panel look, this really clean look that kind of silent cases have come to adopt. And we've been pretty famous for doing kind of this in Obsidian family, where we have an aluminum front.
Yeah.
But for cost purposes, this is actually a textured plastic front, which is why it's not an Obsidian family product, because the Obsidian family requires actual aluminum to be in Obsidian.
That is a differentiator.
And then inside here, we went through and looked at the front panel designs of almost all these other chassis. What we found is that actually these are really, really big airflow indicators and noise adders. If you don't mesh this out a lot, you are basically choking your fans, your intake fans, for airflow. So the fans either have to work harder or you get more airflow noise going through all these grills.
Okay.
So we really mesh this out. There's a very tight mesh for the dust filter. You just take this off, and you get a 140 millimeter here. You can add a second 140 millimeter if you'd like. These are also meshed and dust filtered. This is a very easy to clean dust filter, and it just snaps right back in without a lazy Susan to move it. Yeah, I can't see where I'm going here. Very easily done.
All right.
And then this door is actually reversible as well. So it has sound damping on the inside, but you can reverse it so it opens from the other side if you'd like. So inside, this case is almost identical to the 300R case that we sell.
Okay.
The one change is the top has been made a little bit taller to accommodate H100i or H110. And that means right now you have this cover here, but you can just pop this cover off.
Okay.
You have sound damping here. And if you decide you want to install a liquid cooler, you can use that top mesh for that.
All right, and you said even the H110 280 millimeter radiator also fits up there?
Yeah, H110 should fit as well.
And plenty of space for the radiator and your fans to fit above the motherboard. Also 120 millimeter mount on the back, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And yeah, there's your system built in there. You guys opted to go without the drive cage right here, and that's just for direct airflow. Again, back to your heat producing components.
Again, you can put an extra drive cage here and get another. So right now we have 4 drives in here. We actually, have an adapter that you can add and add 4 more drives if you really want to.
Okay.
But most people aren't using more than 4 drives in their systems these days, with NASs and things like that being much more common. So we said, okay, let's take this out because it actually increases the amount of airflow or noise level, and it reduces the airflow levels. So if you get that cage and take it out, you get better direct airflow to your graphics cards and CPU, and you get lower noise levels because the fan doesn't have to work as hard to push through all that stuff.
Excellent. And so the model number one more time for
Carbide Series 330R.
330R. So guys, keep an eye out for this one.
Both of these cases should be in stock at Newegg in late July.
Late July-ish.
Yeah.
All right. So keep an eye out for both of them. And George, thank you very much for talking to us today and sharing with us some info about these new cases.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, guys, we're continuing our coverage of Corsair because Corsair has lots of different computer products, and we love just about every single one of them. But I'm now talking with Rick Allen, Director of Public Relations. Do I have that?
For Corsair, that's
for
right.
Corsair.
Yeah.
And Rick's actually going to be sharing with us some more information about the Corsair keyboard line because I really like the Corsair keyboards. We've had the K70, the K95 just recently released. So we have a few versions of those over here. So you guys might be already familiar with these. We've covered them a little bit in some of our Newegg TV videos. A lot of the special lighting effects that are available. This is the K70 in the back, the K90 up here in the front, and then this is the K70 also available in the black background with the red keys.
Correct.
That's about all I know so far, though. So Rick is going to tell me about some new keyboards that are coming out. The idea being to provide a little bit more variety.
Yes, exactly. That's the purpose exactly. The keyboards that you just talked about, the Vengeance K70s that we launched back in March and the K95 that we announced back at CES, they all use Cherry MX red key switches.
Okay.
And a lot of gamers like those because they're very fast, very quick. But since we've had these keyboards, they've been very successful, but we've had a vocal number of gamers out there online requesting that we get different feels for the keys.
Different switches.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
To use with different switches. Some people want Cherry MX blues, some people want Cherry MX browns. So we said, okay, we'll go ahead and make those. So we took our most popular platform right now, the Vengeance K70, and we've come out with 2 new versions that we're announcing at Computex.
Okay.
So let me bring
These
you over
are
here.
right over here.
These,
Okay.
That's these right here. So they both have a new gunmetal finish. That's the first thing that you notice. It's a little hard to tell in this
So
lighting.
it's not quite as light as the silver finish
Right.
that we have over there with the K70. It's kind of right in between. Really nice finish, though. I like it.
Yep. So the difference is well, they still have the individual key backlighting of the Vengeance K70. Everything's nearly identical except there's one model now with Cherry MX Brown and one model with Cherry MX Blue keys.
All right. So the brown's right here available. Are these both
Actually,
the same gunmetal?
Pull
I
this
believe
up.
that one's the brown.
This is
yeah.
the brown, and then
All
this
right.
is the Cherry MX Blue. Yep, and the gunmetal finish, the pricing is the same as well. They're $129.99, and they'll be available in July.
Excellent. So more variety of the spice of life, of course. So for those of you guys who might be looking for some Corsair quality with some other switches, you got browns and blues now available. We also have this guy right here.
Yeah, this is a brand new keyboard for this. This is actually our Raptor K50 keyboard.
Okay.
And once again, being announced at the show at Computex. And this is a membrane keyboard.
Ah.
The cool feature about it, though, is that it's got RGB backlighting.
Okay.
So you can set the background lighting to one of 16.8 million colors. We can't show you them all now. It might take a little while.
That would take quite a while.
Right,
And
exactly.
is that sort of universal lighting for all the keys on the board?
No. Everything is all at once.
Okay.
Certainly. It's just a mechanical limitation right now of being able to do that.
All right, so a membrane keyboard. Some folks who aren't into mechanical switches do still like the membrane keyboard. So also another option available from Corsair, and it's got sort of the same stylings and design. Not exactly the same. It looks like the body's slightly different.
Yeah, the body is a slightly different build, but it has that look of the K70 and the K95.
All right.
And these will also be available in July, and this will be $99.99.
All right. Also in the Raptor line, if I'm not mistaken, we have a couple new mice.
Couple of new mice. Yep, some Corsair designed Raptor mice. We have the Raptor M40, which looks a lot like our M65 mouse, or Vengeance M65 mouse. The difference is that this one has a high quality plastic design to help bring the price point down a bit.
Okay.
And
Also, we have
it also has the adjustable weighting on the bottom,
Okay.
and it has an optical sensor.
Optical
It's got
sensor.
the Avago sensor, which gives it 4,000 DPI.
Okay, very nice. And then also we have this one here.
This is the Raptor M30 mouse, and it's more of a mainstream mouse. It's still a high quality, high performance. It uses the 4,000 DPI optical sensor,
Okay.
and it's got a more basic button setup.
All right.
And
so,
this retails for $49.99, and this is $59.99.
Okay, so a bit less price-wise than say the M65.
Yes.
All right.
Right.
And then lastly, we have this one right here. That I've been kind of taking a look. You might notice keyboard with no 10 keys. So this is.
Yeah, I think of this as sort of a sawed-off K70 in a
All
way,
right.
but this is the Vengeance K65 keyboard.
Okay.
And the beautiful thing about it is it takes up less desk space, or if you like to go to LAN parties and want to bring a keyboard with you, it's much smaller to pack up.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, as part of that thinking, we actually made the USB cord detachable, so you can actually pull it off and pack it up lightly.
Take a look down here.
Yep.
Keyboard. So the USB cable can unplug right there from the bottom. Makes it very portable. And this is still using mechanical keys.
This is fully mechanical as well, and it's using Cherry MX Red keys.
All right. So some MX Reds.
Right, and the great thing about this is also, because we reduced the key count, it also brings the price down. So people that want to get a fully mechanical keyboard, they can get this for $89.99.
Very nice. All right.
Also available in July.
Okay, so keep your eyes open in July. Corsair cases, Corsair keyboards, peripherals as well from the Vengeance series right here. All right, guys, the event here has rolled to a close. All of the overclocking results are in, and we saw some really impressive numbers. But right now I'm talking with Zane. How's it going, Zane?
It's going great.
We've been having a great time here at this event, and were you impressed with the overclockers out there?
Well, these guys clearly were all fired up, and I think we saw some very impressive numbers. I was blown away by the enthusiasm. I was really excited by the results. What a great way to bring the 4th generation Intel Core to market.
I agree. It was an excellent event. We saw speeds of just a hair short of 7 gigahertz on the CPU overclock. I think we're like 16 megahertz or so short of that. Memory overclocks were up 3,700 plus.
Which is really good.
We saw sub 5 minute times on Super Pi 32. So just really impressive scores overall. So is this the type of event that Intel gets excited about? You guys want to have more events like this?
Absolutely. The enthusiast market is just one of our best businesses, people that really appreciate the technology that we're bringing to market. I think over the last few years, we've just continued to invest more and more in enthusiasts and overclockers. The K SKU, the K product, is really our flagship product line, and I
do think maybe you should have some bouncers maybe at the door, though, kind of keep the riffraff out. They tend to sort of creep in, and you never know when they're going to pop out. But
I think we're having a little too much fun at this event.
Oh, it is towards the end. We're rolling into the evening, and we have all of Computex still ahead of us. I'm sure we're going to see lots more performance overclocking with Intel.
I bet a lot of these numbers are broken by the end of the week.
Most likely, because we were talking about the hardware that's being used here, and the CPUs. These are not necessarily bin CPUs that they know are going to hit really high frequencies. This is sort of just a general sampling of the CPUs that are available. So some really impressive numbers from the 4770K. And I think that about wraps it up. So Zane, thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thank you, guys.
And
have a great Computex.
We shall, and we'll see more of you later on. And that is just about going to wrap it up for our coverage here at the Corsair and Intel overclocking event at Computex 2013. If you guys would like to see more of our coverage, we're going to be posting it just about all week. So check that out on our Newegg TV YouTube channel. I want to say a huge thank you to Corsair and Intel for inviting us over here, as well as all the overclockers that they have doing overclocking and everything. So we'll see you guys very, very soon.